Good morning. Good morning, Togglebit. How you doing? Coding by Amp. How are you? It's Nildev. Everyone's here today. Goodness. I was actually trying to catch up on this thread here because I had asked in this chat something, and it's just moving too fast for me to keep up on. So something had happened. It's like, okay, I got called out. Why didn't Search pick that up? Oh, well, thanks. But what were they actually talking about? But basically, it goes back to our question yesterday. Into what is elements remove take content? What do I do with it? It's a typo. So apparently we pointed something out and it started some sort of thread. I was trying to catch up on that. But good morning and happy Thursday. Morning, Xenocron. How are you? Oh my goodness. My back. Been doing deadlifts again. I was out of shape. Started with probably a little too heavy because I didn't realize how out of shape I was. Oh, you learned about closures today. Ooh. In which language? Oh, the closures are in so many languages. It is Thursday. Yes. It's almost Friday. All right. Close that. I actually tried to wire up Telescope yesterday. Telescope was really neat, but I went back to FCF for one thing that I use all the time. Let's say I wanted to find the structs in the template directory. So here we have the template directory, and there might be some structs in here. In here, I would search for um, template struct, and then I have them right here. You knew closures from JS. Oh, okay. Learned them in Rust today. Very cool. Very, very cool. Oh, that's right. The camera's down here today. So I keep looking for you up there. Oh, they're usually up there. But no, you're right in front of me today. So mod has been an absolute pleasure. Um, mod has this little trait you can implement, and it it doesn't have a large runtime cost. It's a very, very small runtime cost, which is perfect for us. Oh, this is odd. My fingers are going to be flipping between the wrong windows. I'm going to close this one because the numbers are kind of funky. All right. So we had been using Horror Show, and Horror Show inflated the binary just way too much. Well, the WASM file, right? Because we're doing WASM stuff. And it had a very similar feel to this. This actually feels really comfortable to reason about when you see it. Okay, this is an HTML block. Here's form. You have key, value, attributes. It's simple. It even does some escaping that we saw here. Their website's actually fairly nice. And it didn't bloat the WASM file, which is amazing. Oh, it said couldn't compile it, but that's last time we were able to compile it, we did have it in there. So that is fantastic, especially for our little WASM things. Now, where are we going with this? I see. I'm looking for you up there again. I figured out a way that we can actually do the mass sort of fetch at the beginning of the request, and then slowly feed out the responses in a specific order for the widgets. What are we up to? Oh, I should probably set today. Today, working on streaming out template responses using, was it transform stream? Yeah, transform stream. And mod. Transform stream. Promises. And mod. Actually, let's remove the period on that. It goes to the next line. There we go. Okay. So basically when a request comes in, right, because we are inside of a Cloudflare, you're still up there, you're over here, Cloudflare web worker, okay, which means that we can do all sorts of cool stuff. We can make requests to other websites, we can make requests to their KV store, to their cache, and in our case, for login, we don't actually have to make a request to anything. Not enough for generating the HTML for that page. We'll have to do something for the post, but we're not going to focus on that today. We're going to kind of come up with a couple templates and maybe some arbitrary fetching or something, because I want to stamp out the pattern that we're going to be using in the long run. Now, how are we going to do this? If we come back to our entry point here, let's go to the very entry point, which is actually in JavaScript. So JavaScript, we actually have an async handler written in Rust that is exported in our WASM file. This is it. So we have fetch handler coming out of there. We also have emoji counter, which technically doesn't exist anymore. Well, I guess it must exist, otherwise this wouldn't work. But it's not doing anything. We have to have that there for durable objects. We'll fix that later. It was our exploration. So fetch handler comes into lib. Got our public async fetch handler, so this returns a promise. And then we have multiple kinds of routers. And this is done because the other routers that were out there couldn't really do what we needed. We needed something simple, something that worked with WASM. And so we built a router. Now, this is Mimeograph router. If you want to go look at it, feel free. It's in the crates.io. And a router returns a closure. Hey, Banana Wave. How you doing? We're doing pretty well. So we've got a router here that returns a closure that will try to match a given request. So you can use this router for any type that implements a specific trait, specifically the request trait. So we implemented that trait for some sort of wrapper that we have here for Cloudflare bits. So for Cloudflare bits match a specific pattern, like this pages get, and this one's a little more complicated, pages get. This has a glob here, which is technically going to match everything, right? It's like, hey, this matches everything. Well, if it's a get, then that'll handle it. However, pages.get might not actually handle it. So if it returns something that results in a router result not handled, then we actually go on to try some of our other routes. Because what I'm building out is kind of a a WordPress, serverless WordPress alternative, right? Um, we're basically doing a database lookup here, but it's, a database lookup. When I say database lookup, it's really their key value store lookup. If we find their key value, a key for that route in their key value store, then this will handle it. This pages get will handle it. If the key doesn't exist there, then we'll pass it off and say, okay, well, maybe something else is going to handle it. Is it a static? Is it, something else? Is it one of these fixed routes? And I'm actually doing it first because it's kind of the um, hot path in that most people coming to a website are doing gets. They're not doing posts. They're not doing all these other things. So I want to see, is it the expected path first? That's why we have this here. And I think I'm going to put the statics just underneath it. It is going well. It's going well. So our pages.get function, you can see the match there. How many monitors do I have? In front of me, I've got two. Direct ahead of me is OBS right here. I've got my code up here. And then on the left and the right, a couple of laptops. Making good progress? We are actually making some good progress. Especially in determining what sort of tech we're going to use. We couldn't use Cloudflare's HTML rewriter for our templates because we can't actually get the template off of it and duplicate it. If we could do that, we probably could have used it. So, and we also tried to use Horror Show for our template engine, but that didn't work because it added too much bloat to the WASM file. I just didn't like how much weight it brought in. So then we tried out Mod, and we're using Mod now, and it is slick. I absolutely love Mod. I think I'll use Mod for many things in the future. It's easy to use. It doesn't have a lot of weight to it. It's blazingly fast. So, all right. So we've got a number of different elements here. Now, our page handler, when the request comes in and we happen to have a config for the page, right, we look something up in the key value store. If it doesn't exist, as we said before, we return the result that says, hey, this route didn't handle this. If it does get matched, eventually we'll come down here and return a response. Okay, that's not yet. Before we get to that point, we're going to create this stream, and we have to be able to cobble together the actual page. Now, what is a page, right? We have a couple of concerns here. I love performant web pages. I can't stand websites that take 300 milliseconds to render the time to first byte, right? Let's see, does Firefox have the Lighthouse plugin? It is a JavaScript feature because we're running WASM inside of V8. We actually have to interact with JavaScript. Oh, you tried using Reddit yesterday? Yes. Like, why? Why does it take so long to do some simple things? I think web developers have like they've been collecting all these other kitchen sinks that everybody's thrown out, and they've got 2 or 3 kitchen sinks in their single page application. More than selective duplicate. Yeah, and talk about how do you stream so much? Man, I'm jelly. Just chilling and learning. And yes, let's see, do we have? You're actually 2 people? Oh, you've got a twin. Oh, congrats, Togglebit. That must have been great for you. Togglebit used to do like 8 to 10 hours straight like a coding monster. Yes, I remember. I remember he would start when I was going to bed, and when I would wake up in the morning, he was still there. I'd fall asleep to his voice, and that was quite nice actually. So, let's do some drawing. Oh, you don't have to deal with a day job, man. Well, that must be nice. I've thought about doing that again. I used to have my own company. And technically, I guess I do have a company. It's Rooster Buckets. I've got that whole thing set up, but it doesn't do anything. Oh, you want to see some goats at some point? I've actually thought of using them for some of the little animations and stuff on here. So maybe. Oh, this is just the OS 10 launcher. But I want to load up Sprite. New file. Okay. So what I wanted to draw really quick was kind of the architecture. Right, we're inside of Cloudflare. Right, you have the internet out here, right? Big cloud thing, or a giant spaghetti monster, whatever that looks like, without that on it. It's a big cloud thing. So you have those, and you have requests that come in and hit Cloudflare. Cloudflare is going to handle these off, or hand these off to some sort of V8 instance that they have in their machinery, their behemoth. Shurizzle, thank you for the follow. Thank you for that. And we live inside of one of these things, inside of one of these. So if we look at what one of these little pieces are, this is, everybody know what V8 is? It's from Chrome. It's their JavaScript engine. Um, Node actually uses it. If Chrome uses it, I'm sure other things use it. They use it here, and essentially, it's just a little JavaScript runtime. Tell me the name. Oh, this is Asprite. 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 Thank you, Togglebit. Beat me to it. Now, inside one of these boxes, we can run JavaScript, right? Oh, that's not a. It's a little pencil tool. And then we can also run WASM, right? Because V8 can run WASM. So we're actually compiling Rust, our Rust code, to WASM and running it inside of the Cloudflare machinery. Yeah. For pixel artists, it is fantastic. I really like it. So if you're doing some like old school 8-bit style programming, it is fantastic, especially if you're doing like curves and things like that. They get curves right, which is hard to do, especially for like 8-bit coding, because there are actually some specific rules as to how to keep the thickness and when to do this. You don't see like the little blips out here, the 1 pixel sort of dots off the edge of the curve that you get in some other programs. Other programs might end up with like a single little dot out there or something. So Sprite's fantastic. Okay, so that's basically where our code is living, right? We're inside of. So there we go. We're inside of WASM. Well, we're inside of a V8 runtime, inside Cloudflare's machinery somewhere, and they tell us when there's a request. They hand it to us, and we handle it. Now, they've done a lot to optimize the streaming ability inside this. So they're doing like, what is it? Zero copy transforms and stuff like that on the requests, which is what the HTML rewriter is great for. But also, when interacting with our key value store, you can pass it through as a stream. And you can also pass things out as a stream. Why are we using Cloudflare? That's a good question. And they have just enough of what we need, right? The development experience, oops, whacked the mic. The development experience has been actually really nice so far. Their tooling is good enough. They have this Wrangler tool. So we could do like Wrangler dev, env development, and run our code locally. Well, what looks to be local, right? I'm sure it uploads some stuff to Cloudflare into their machinery, but it's got this cool pipe going. So when we connect to 127.0.0.1 on this port, it's actually connecting to their systems and interacting in this development environment. Right? We've got a page not found. If we go to login, we've got an exception, right? And we can see some of the errors here locally, even though I don't think it's being run locally. Now, that works out really well for this. Also, we can use Rust here. The other nice thing about this, it takes, when we do have it compiling, we haven't fixed that yet, but when we do have it compiling, it takes 3 to 5 seconds to do one of these test edit loops, which is really nice. When we were trying to use AWS, we were having to use some larger machinery, and it ended up taking 30 plus seconds to make a code change, and then we'd sit there and wait, and I'd have to come up with some sort of dialogue to interact, and that wasn't just good for development. It wasn't good for development. I'd like to iterate faster than that. And it wasn't good for the stream either. Yes, I used spaceship. Was it Starship? Oh, I guess I have to do that over here. Yeah, use Starship. So, coming back here. Now, while I don't have anything against AWS, I just liked the development cycle which is that much faster. I get a little bit more response because for going through and exploring these things, I don't know exactly what I want to do. And to figure out that something like caused too much code bloat or was slow or something like that, I like to iterate a little faster. So now, given that Cloudflare can do this streaming, right, this data streaming, if we can respond as fast as possible to the request, the browser is going to start to render much, much sooner. So what we could do is start to write almost immediately. We have to do one thing first. For this GET request, we have to check to see, does the data exist? And if it does exist, then we'll get that data back. We'll stream that data back to us. We're not going to wait for the whole thing because it could be 25 megabytes. It would be horrible for me to store 25 megabytes for a single web page in a Cloudflare KV store. However, if we did, it's possible to do if we needed that much space. But we're going to be streaming the data back out of KV into this. So they're going to have us come back to this point. What? Didn't we update today? I thought we... Oh, hold on. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot the set keyword. There we go. Yeah. I just wrote out today earlier. All right. So back to this. When we get the data from Cloudflare, we just want 1 byte back. We just want to know that it exists. I don't want the whole blob. Just tell me that it exists, and we're going to tell the browser we're sending you data. Okay. And then, as that data streams into the WASM worker from Cloudflare, we're going to start to stream data back out to the browser. So here's our stream. We got 2 ends of it, right? We've got the readable end and the writable end. We don't get the readable end. That goes to the browser. So we toss that into the response here. There's the response. And some other bits and bobs there. Now, the writable end is going to go into our async block here. The reason that we're spawning this local here is because we won't want this to get kind of tossed aside, kind of in the JavaScript environment, and just run kind of separate, right? It's async. And return the response as soon as possible. So we're going to pop this out into its own little async, I don't know, what do we call it? Closure? It's a closure. In JavaScript it is, actually. So we're going to start to render the page using the page writer, the page template, pardon me, and the page config. And how are we going to do that? We get the writer from the writable stream, pass that in, along with the page config. Now, what is this page config? It is a JavaScript object in this case. I wouldn't mind if this was a readable stream, and that's something that I would like to change it to in the future, because that would let us just do a little bit more with it. But for now, we're going to be storing JSON blobs in Cloudflare for this. So we're going to get that JSON object back, our little page config object, toss it into a template page, and hope that we can actually write with that. Now, let's come back into here. This is where we left off last time. We're going to build out this render and do something with that. But we haven't done anything yet. Let's write it up, wire it up here. Okay. So we have our render, and we're going to await that. Now, don't know what to do with that yet, but that's what it's going to look like here. Oh, it's private. Let's go fix that. Okay. So, what are we going to do in this writer? We need to collect a number of elements. We're going to be streaming out some of the data, some of the basic page elements. So let's do that first off. So I want data to go to the browser as quick as possible. You can see a bit of this. Now, we need to write the top bits of an HTML page. And I was grabbing some off of this because I wanted to get, this was a great suggestion yesterday. There were, somebody had passed this in, what is it, HTML5 boilerplate. We're not actually using Modernizer. We're not going to use Modernizer, so that's going away. Let's dump out some of this here. You're off to bed. Rogue particle. I like that. A rogue particle. Oh, thank you for the follow. Yeah, I wonder if we have like some sort of joke for that. A rogue particle walks into the bar. A bartender says, I don't know. There's got to be something there. All right. Page content. Now, what does text encoder actually want here? Let's go look up our Cloudflare types. It's in stream. And where was it here? Text encoder? Encode. Oh, okay. So it just wants a stir. That's fine. Have I ever searched Emacs in the Google? You keep bringing up Emacs. I used to be an Emacs user. What's the old joke? Oh, Emacs would be great if only it had a decent text editor. Oh, no, no, I butchered that. Emacs would be a great operating system if only it had a decent text editor. But no, I liked Emacs. It just didn't completely fit with me. So I switched back to Vim for it. I've been using Vim for way too long. But only as a friend. Why search for Emacs in Google? All right, we'll do this. Uh, oh, oh my goodness. Yeah, if you search for VI, that's fantastic. I'm gonna pour some more water here. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, so let's. I think we're just gonna toss this into a. No, I think we're gonna have little functions for these. Um, function. Oops. Say render. Page start. That's gonna take the. What is that? A reference to the encoder. It's a text encoder and the writer. What is this? This is a default. Oh, no, 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 it's not. It's it's a what is it? Is it that? Is it, I don't think that's correct. Let's double check that. Oops, let's go back into pages. So when we get that, okay, I guess it is one of these writable stream default writers. But then what is this? What is a writable? Okay, so it's just a writable stream. And then we get the writer for the writable stream. And that's a writable stream default writer. Uh, oh yes, yes. Actually, I would love to know how to make the left side a little smaller and the right side a little larger here. Oh, do a barrel roll? Yeah, I've seen that one. That one's a lot of fun too. Which is funny because it's really an aileron roll in Star Fox. But everyone knows the difference. Barrel roll You stay on your axis, your straightforward axis. Aileron roll, you're going up and around. All right. When I learned that, I felt lied to. That game that I played so much as a kid. Do an aileron roll. Do an aileron roll. That just doesn't work in that game. I get it. But they should have had like little asterisks there. And... All right. Where are we going? Back into page. We're going to call our render page start. Writable stream default writer. That name needs to shrink a bit. It's not going to return anything. It is... it should probably return the future. A JS future. All right. It's basically going to be doing this. Am I using FCF preview? No. I don't know. This is my FCF config. Let's see. Yeah, this is it for FCF in my Vim config. So we'll have an encoder. We will write something in here, say our content. Start is going to be r pound quote, quote, or now we're just going to toss some of this in there. HTML, and that's it. Actually, let's not do it that way, because mod is going to do it the other way. So let's just put it all in line. So that's basically what mod's going to do anyways. You use FD type file. I see. But I'm also using, either one of these looks at your git ignore. But I don't want to constrain it to just one file type. What if I wanted to go to like a TOML file or a JS file? I mean, it works. Oh, I need an equal sign here. Toss an equal on there. Have our page start. Or just say this is content. That's going to be the beginning. And writer. JS future needs to be imported. What else? Cannot find page content in this scope. Fine. I get it. Pass in the text encoder and the writer. Yeah, I'm going to be keeping those promises around. And we'll see why in a minute. All right. Then at the very end, we'll have the let page end. Mismatched types. Yeah. And this is going to be stupid simple for now. But mainly we just want the promise, etc. Function render content. Coder. I know it. Just grab that. There. Now, we're doing this for a very, very specific optimization. That's going to have to be, oh, I already have one of those. Page start, page end. Okay, now we have the header section. Oh, cannot move that out of a shared reference. Why does it want to move it out? We just want to borrow it. Expected struct. Really? Ah, no, should be borrowed. Yeah. And why are we doing it that way? Just toss it on here. Let's take a self. Yeah, why did we do it that way? I don't know. It's just having a moment most of the time. Huh. So that can just be replaced with self. Oh, do we not have an encoder? We don't have an encoder. Let's create one. All right. So now that we have our text encoder, we can do a self.render, self.this. We don't have to pass these in anymore. All right. That's a decent looking render function. Okay. Now we need to await these in a specific order. Well, actually we need to await all of them. And do we have to do this like so? Or can we convert these? Can we just use the JavaScript promise to await all of them in JavaScript land? Because that does return a JS feature. But does it have to return a JS feature? Is that right there? It returns a promise. I don't think we have to do anything special with the promise. We just have to await it later. So maybe we're doing the wrong thing by bringing it into wrapping the JavaScript promise with a Rust future. Does JS have the ability to do this? Probably. Promise. All. Perfect. So we just toss these all into an array, and that's it. Huh? So we can have a JS array, and we can push into it, right? Oh, but we have to do these in a specific order, don't we? We can't just say, go right, go right, go right. We have to write in a specific order. Because we need to chain the writing of this after the writing of this one. Just because you create a future before another one doesn't mean that it'll execute before that one. We actually have to use some chaining here. So maybe render page end will happen after the other one. Okay, so let's go back to promise here. Then yeah, we probably don't need to do the resolve reject. What is this closure type? I'm not familiar with this. A closure is the primary way that a static lifetime closure will be transferred from Rust to JavaScript. Maybe we do want to do the other one. Oh, but these are still closures. I see. All right, let's try to do that. Now we're going to need to pass in a promise. What do we call this? Chain? I'm going to create a little promise chain here. Our render page start. I do not want it to return a JS feature anymore. I think. Yeah. So render page start is going to return a promise. Render content needs to return a promise. Same with this one. Okay. Promise, promise, promise. Can I find type promise in the, oh, fine. Import JS sys promise. Okay. Now we're going to take this wrapper here off. Okay, there we have our promise. Now we have, oh, resolve already. We're going to start off with our chain. Let chain equals promise resolve. We're just going to pass it in some value, right? It says that it needs a JS value. What JS value can we give it? JS value. Let's just give it like undefined or something like that. We're not going to look at the value. So that's undefined. We are OM promise chain. All right. Okay. That's our promise chain. I'm going to pass the chain into here. Yep, it's going to be owned there. We're going to get something else back. Okay, then we have page start, and then we will pass in page start here. And then if we want to interject things into the chain, we'll have to do it like that, right? We'll put something in the middle. Okay. Page end should be taking a promise as well. Chain promise. You know what I was wondering? All right, there we go. I updated the stream tags. I saw that they added something like that. Turned on backseating allowed. All right, now does this actually build? Almost, it almost builds. The following should all be named Sally. I cannot move out of self.username. Do I have to clone this? As ref. Well, it's a string. It is zoned. Oh, well. Oh, dot take. We actually want to take the string out of there. Transfer ownership. So self.username actually becomes a none at that point. Oh, it takes immutable self? Sure. That should be fine. Oh, but render doesn't like that. Crumble. Clone. Clone it is. Hey, Ecton, how's it going? A whole year. Whoa. I know. I need a sub alert. Wow. Well, thank you, Ecton. That is amazing. Can't believe we've been doing this for so long. And thank you. Move that over there. Just waking up, pre-coffee. Hope your weather's hanging in there. Getting into spring. Should be nice out there this time of year. So, yeah, should be nice. All right. So now we should have something that actually builds and maybe works. Um, let's see it work. I want to make sure that those are actually getting written out. Sitting outside more? Yeah. Oh, I'm killing your allergies. Oh man. Um, let's do a Wrangler dev here. Whoa. What? Compile and create WebAssembly failed. What happened here? Hold on. We're not going to try to fix that. Let's do a cargo clean. Dist and build. See, is it reproducible? All right. Oh, bummer. Rusty has overflowed its stack. Skill Kinger. How you doing? Yeah, it's been a little while. This is surprising. Wow. Huh. Now that we found a bug in Rust. How do we do that? I wonder what it was specifically. Let's go back to the page. No, yeah, pages. We have our new writer here, and page to render. Let's comment that out. Or any of the nightly of the nightly. Am I using nightly? No, I'm unstable. With a pre-alpha build of some package? Yeah. Okay. Still. Page. Like it was these bits here that we just did. Still. Does it have like some bad cache? We tried doing the clean earlier, and that should have cleaned everything out. Well, this is surprising. And that's all done. What if we don't even pull in page? We just get the writer. See, this here it probably should have been working. Okay, that doesn't work either. What changed? Did I butcher something else? Yeah, that should be fine. Before we get that far, what happened here? Oh, that's right. Let's commit that. Okay, that was funny. Um, actually, that should have been part of the last commit. Amend that. All right, lib. Yeah, that's fine. Pages. We have pages commented out, don't we? Okay. We'll just stash all of that. Oh, but it still wants to remove element. Okay. Pop. Get UI. Let's say that one's safe. I think it was in here, right? Remove element? Or was that in templates mod? It's this section here. Oh, didn't want to do that too much. That line. And then those two lines. Let's just go fix that for a moment. Oh, wow. Give CSC a kick. Okay. Wait, the check works fine? Then why isn't it building? Can't resolve that. That's expected if it doesn't compile. Template mod 38 and 45. Yeah, see, all of this actually changed. Title handler, login handler. I don't think we should actually. Here, get a stash pop. Let's put that stuff back. Well, let's just comment out some more stuff. So we're in pages. We are going to comment out. Where do we think it is? I'm guessing it's in the templates. Not certain though. Not certain. That's a good place to kind of cleave it in half though. Actually, let's do it the other way. Let's go into lib. Just comment that out. Template no longer exists. Okay, that's gone. And what else? Morning, Nerd Flakes. Ever since you learned Rust, you try to use it for literally any purpose. Cooking breakfast. Like, okay, I need a microcontroller. Rust can work there. For websites. Okay, that built. So what is it about our templates that are breaking this? Lib. Enable template. Template mod. All right, template mod. We've got login page and title. But it must be a page because that's kind of the entry point. Let's comment out login and title. Does that build? Exactly. All right. So give us a build. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Why I've been enjoying working on Cloudflare a little bit more than doing Rust in AWS's Lambdas. Just because that little loop there took 2 seconds. Okay, so that built. And wait, that built? Why did that build? We can delete this. Login. Probably because we have it unwired. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. Oh, that did it? What's in login? Well, mod. Mod is in login. Do we have something recursive in here? Oh, we did this clone. Why would this do it though? So basically we had this before. Self.username. Yes, and it was giving us this error. Here, let's just say string from Mr. Halsey was here. Does it still explode? It does. Fantastic. Why? Yeah, thank you for the follow, Nerdflex. We're gonna start deleting some of this. Just gonna put it in my delete buffer. Is that it? No. Really? If that's not it, what is it? Is it mod render? Just implementing mod render? Oh, this is fascinating. Why would I do this? Oh, because we had this working before. We had a. I am speechless. Thank you for the follow buffer, OX1. Macro sanity issues? Maybe, but I don't even think we're using this right now. It's just hitting the compiler. Okay, let's see. Where can we get references to this? So let's come up here. We do not have any references to this. Huh. Is it just that there's not enough room in the stack anymore? Yeah, let's try it in nightly. Rust stop. Override. Set nightly. Rust stop. Update. Let's get the latest nightly. Is it somehow recursive? Like username? It needs to render this in order to render username, which is this. No. Self's not in here. That's what you ran into with you before? Oh, interesting. But doesn't it usually tell us that, like, it'll usually crash and say, hey, maybe you need to update this? Because it's not telling us this. What it is telling us is that we've, or at least I don't, did I miss that? Yeah, it's just overflowed its stack. But it does have the same smell to it, doesn't it? Let's see. All right, updating two things at the same time. What could go wrong? Let's comment that out. Oh, wow. Wait, what's going on? Yeah, I'm updating stuff I didn't mean to update. I'm from when we were doing the lambdas, the AWS lambdas. All right. So, come on, install. And how is 192 this one? How's our little buddy doing? We're getting 20 megabit per second, 42, 18. That's pretty good. It's not it's not us that's being slow. No, that's actually a Rust C thing. Try increasing with the macros. Definitely a Rust C thing. Okay, that's hopefully this is the last version that we have to update. Come on, baby. All right. Cargo build. We also have some other. Oh, wait. We do have some other Rust C flags, don't we? Cargo.toml. We have some WASM ops. So we have some WASM stuff. Do we still need this? I don't think we need that. Okay, but it did overflow the stack. Let's try turning on lib, the recursion limit, bumping that up. Okay, do it again. No, that's fascinating. Do I have... I don't have a render type anymore. Okay, well, let's jump in a little further. Um, so inside of login... Oh, no, we want our template login. Okay. We're technically not even using this at the... I mean, it's doing the checks and everything. Does Rust have TCO? What do you mean by TCO? Okay. Well, how would we figure this out? Let's go check on mod. I want their GitHub. Issues. Stack Overflow. Oh, interesting. Yes, it is very sensitive to other code around the problem impl. Oh, tail call optimization. No. Not yet, actually. There's a... Where was that? I think there was an RFC on that. You lost your connection. What happened? That could have been Starlink. Little satellite drop. Oh yeah, right there. Look at that. My signal went to zero for just a moment. It's actually been getting better and better. So, it is what it is. All right. Now, back to where we were. You solved it by putting the problem inside its own submodule. In the simplified example, this becomes... How interesting. That's funny. Elonet, yes. Starlink? Yeah, Starlink. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I want to check the actual bug. Let's take a look at that. Compile time Stack Overflow when trait impl contains external crate. Oh. Okay. Where'd this end up? Hmm. Oh, they're on it. Oh, the statistics. Yeah, this is the hardware. So I'm connected to the Starlink hardware that I'm using, and these are the stats from my connection. Am I using Starlink? Yes. Yes. This is I'm streaming over Starlink, and it costs about half as much as what I was paying for before, and um, it's like 25 times faster, or 25 to 50 times faster. Oh, you're about to get that. Yeah. Um, I think it's how is it definitely depends on kind of these numbers over here in the top left. Beta downtime 3 minutes in the last 24 hours. So if you add this up, almost 5 hours of downtime for me in the last 24 hours. This is actually high. 2 days ago, it was a minute and a half in 24 hours. So, and some of it isn't actually due to signal. Sometimes they'll be doing something in some like uplink station I happen to be routed to, like somebody doing some routing, wiring changes, etc. Oh, you're not supported yet. Okay, so if we put this in mod ubi like so, and we use mod in there for super mod, super login. Does that actually fix the problem? Oh, it didn't. Okay. And if I put this whole thing in there, okay, now we have the login issue. So let's say we call this mod F. 6 warnings. Okay, now in template, we can't re-export that. That's fine. Let's go fix that. Private module. Ah. Oh, Rust. Pub mod F. It's still overfloated stack. I'll use theme. Oh, I see. They're actually exporting from there. So let's take that back. Template mod. Take that out of there. And then at the very end, pub F. Okay. You're solving it by putting the problem impl inside its own submodule. In the simplified example, this becomes this. And the root, what they said, I think we're going to have to look at that bug a bit. Oh, adding extra and create mod to the root fixes it for him. Okay, let's do that. That seems like the best solution. So if that fixes it, we're back on. Yay. Okay. I'll remove the F mod. That would have been funny. And still, that was an interesting little side journey. Okay, and if we rust up, override, set, stable, cargo build, and we were trying to get just the HTML showing. We wanted the HTML. A little bit at the beginning and the end. Trying to test that out. Actually, I'm going to thumbs up this too. Okay, that's done. Close that. Close that. That too. Uncaught. The script will never generate a response. Woe is us. Okay. Now, this is one of the challenging pieces in that you don't really know what happened. Right? It's like, hey, congrats. Something. So, but we know the route that we were using. We're in pages. Coming through here. And we should have handled this. Actually, why wouldn't this do anything? Is it because we're not actually sending any response? Maybe. Either that or there was some sort of exception. Template page. Page is there. Pub use page. Template page should exist. We've got a promise chain that we were working on. We can't use this anymore because we want time to first byte to be really, really quick. Okay. Oh, yes. Import create template. Okay. Looks like it built. You will never get a response. Not from me. Not ever. All right. Now, why is that? Is it because it actually threw an error? Log 1. Actually, I don't want to do it like that. Anyhow, JS string. I mean, is it happening in here somewhere? Ah, yes. These need to be borrowed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, we borrow those. Then what? Then hopefully it actually crashes within that area. We can trace it down. Oh, interesting. So we got to 6 A's. Yep, A, B, B. Then we started to go through that. Oh, we got into page render. Oh, lovely. Okay. Well, that's where we wanted to be. So we're starting a promise chain. And what could the error be? Could it be resolving this promise? That seems kind of weird. Or, well, the error is the script will never generate a response. Is it because we're not awaiting that? So let's convert that into a JS future and await it. We're in an async function. All right. So then we're actually going to wait the last element in the chain, causing the whole chain to be pulled. Hopefully. We'll see. All right. Still, it will never generate a response. Lies. Because right should be returning a promise. Oh, but we're not chaining the promises yet. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there's your problem. So let's go back into the documentation for this. We do it then. Now we have to figure out what to do here. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dot files here. And we got some other stuff in there too. So lots of little bits here. All right, but how are we going to wire this up? Ideally, we would not have to put it in a closure. Because if we have a JS promise. Yeah, you're welcome, Andrew. See, it might actually be easier for us to use all in this case because we're going to give it a JS value than to use then. No, that all won't work. So we basically have to use then. I mean, promise doesn't implement closure, does it? Oh, we did a clean, was it cargo doc open? I like using the local docs, even though you have to build it. It's still faster than having to like go through like docs.rs to find it. And it works really, really well. Great implementations. All right. And what about closure? Bind gen closure. Oh, there was more than one there. Oh, that's a sin closure expression. Okay. Wrap into JS value. Interesting. So, all right. So we're trying to wire up this promise then. So after that promise, then you do this closure, right? And that ends up returning a response, a promise. So let's do that. Chain dot then. And in this case, I don't really want to take a JS value. We can take a JS value, which would be the result of the previous element in the chain, which we don't technically care about. But then we want to do that. But we want to return a promise there to continue the chain. So this callback here, does it So that's a closure, but it's missing the return type in this. I mean, I know how JavaScript promises work. And let's say expected reference closure. Okay, so let's create a closure type then. Closure wrap or once. Let's read the top. I handle to both a closure in Rust as well as JS closure, which will invoke the Rust closure. A closure is a primary way that a static lifetime closure is transferred from Rust to JS. Okay. This type is a handle in the sense that whenever it is dropped, it will invalidate the JS closure that it refers to. Interesting. Any usage of the closure in JS after the closure has been dropped will raise an exception. It's then up to you to arrange for closure to be properly deallocated at an appropriate location in your program. Really? Forget. We have to. Same as into JS value, but doesn't return a value. Oh, interesting. Hold on. This seems important. The type parameter on closure is the type of the closure that this represents. Currently, this can only be the function and function mute traits with up to 7 arguments. Fine. And an optional return value. And the argument slash return value of the trait must be numbers like U32 for now. What? What? So you can't chain these? I, I don't understand. They're saying that the arguments can only be numbers? That doesn't seem reasonable. It's okay. Using the set interval API. Box, no. Log, time elapsed, fine. This little bit here, the arguments slash return value of the trait must be numbers. That seems very, very constrained. Is there some other way to do this? Let's go back to promise. All right, let's just try to use that anyways. Casting a closure to a JSys function. This is the same as set interval example above, except it's using the WebSys function for callbacks. Instead of manually writing the bindings to set interval. Okay. So here's their closure. Oh my goodness. When it has set interval with callback and timeout and argument 0. Oh, in this view, it looks like I'm bald. I go like this, yeah. Oh, I'm heading that way, man. Heading that way. No, it's not too bad. My wife did this thing to me the other day. She says, not the other day, but years ago. She comes over and she's like, I'm sitting in a chair and she's looking down at me and she's like looking very, very intently. And it's like up here somewhere. I'm like, I see her and I see what she's doing. I say, what is it? What is it? What do you see? She says, your scalp. Yeah. You understand that? Yeah. So what's a closure once? Closure once happens one time, right? Once into jazz. Okay, like a closure once, it doesn't do that. Into jazz value. Release memory management of the closure from Rust to the JS GC. Okay. Some callbacks are alive for the entire duration of the program. Okay. See, I think we actually want to use that. If the browser, however, supports weak references, then this function will not leak memory. Instead, the Rust memory will be reclaimed when the JS closure is GC'd. Weak references are not enabled by default since there's still a proposal for the JS standard. They can be enabled when with WASM by Gen weakref. Oh, interesting. So we could use that. 'Cause I think they're enabled in Node. Yeah, I think they are. So how do we enable that? That's not a bad idea. Okay. But here, just to get something working first, and once into JS, the only way the fn once is deallocated is by calling the JavaScript function. See, oh, by actually, so we might actually leak stuff. We don't want that. Wrap. Okay. Well, it looks like we want to use into JS value, which means we'll want to use this. Is that in my Wrangler config? No, that's in my Webpack config down here. All right, extra args, args. Okay, let's look and see what we have for WASM pack. There's not much there. So how do we set that up? Where do we run? Where do we run that from? That's from package.json. So we do it like that. Then does it carry through though? I don't know if that actually carries through. So we're trying to feed it into this here, which then calls WASM pack. Let's see if they have any documentation on weak. Issues. Weak. None open, unclosed. Hmm. Well, let's just use it and see what. Let's see what happens. Let's see if Cloudflare barfs on it. Wrangler dev. There we go. Well, we have our code issues. So let's fix those. All right. I must implement that. Must be static. Yes. Okay. Argument and return values are all types that can be shared with JavaScript. Perfect. Yeah, we can do that. Okay. Box, new, move. And we're actually going to take something that we don't care for. No, and this needs to be a closure. Hey, Birkin. How you doing? Wants a reference to one. Expected unit. Found struct promise. But it said that I could have a return value. For f and once functions, see closure once and once into JS. Yeah, we definitely want to return the promise because we're setting up a promise chain. Here's our chain. We pass this in to render start page. We want to say chain.then. So after the first resolved promise, it's resolved at the beginning to start the chain. So after that one resolves, then we do this in here. And after we do this one in here, then we go on to the next one, right? And we would want to return the promise here. Do we have to await this? Yoga is doing me good? Yoga? Have I been doing yoga? I've been doing deadlifts. And why is it expecting... I look like if I have... cargo check. Oh, mismatched delimiters. Which one did I miss? One. Oh, we need 3 of those. Hold on. JavaScript promise chain. So it's not the first chain that we want to wait on. No, I don't. Writing a promise. Consuming a promise. Chaining promises. Fetch this, then this, then this, then this, right? So then status, and status has to return a promise. Oh, Mitch. Hey, thank you for the follow. Worlds Collide too. So basically what's going on here is that when you start to chain these things like this, the promise that's returned here has to resolve before the next element in the chain gets pulled. And so this is how we're trying to sequence our writes to Cloudflare's output. Well, we could do the chaining here and just return a closure at this point. But this closure needs to return a promise. And mismatch types. Expected unit found promise. Consider having a colon. No. You might have meant to return this value. Yes, and I do mean to return this value. And render content returns a promise. Which doesn't help. It's still returning a promise. So why is it expecting it to be a promise? What? That is your first site you just finished? I don't follow. What do you mean? Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean there. No. Thanks. Yeah, URLs typically start with like an HTTP, preferably HTTPS. All right. Yeah, maybe you've been working locally. I mean, that might work if you're doing some local stuff, but it doesn't appear to be on the internet. So there's no way I could reach it. All right. How do we get this closure wrap to return the right type? See, it's a box T, where T is what? Where it's a WASM closure. Oh, interesting. What is a WASM closure? What? Hold on. Come back here. WASM closure? That's an internal thing? Oh, it's hidden from the documentation. Internal trait for the closure type. This trait is not stable and is not recommended to use this in bounds or implement yourself. Oh, fine. Oh. Oh, I see. Do we need to express the return type on this? Um, promise. Here, Rust, WASM, closure, return type, closures. Rust by example. No. I want WASM. WASM, WASM, WASM. Hey, Manish. Good morning. All right, man is 40. All right, let's pull up the WASM docs here. They're probably hiding in these tabs. Where are they? No, no, no. Oh, no, I've closed it. Uh, WASM by Gen. Yeah, that's not it. Huh. Windows crash when navigate to that on Edge, Chrome, or Firefox. Ah, I see. Oh, worlds collide. That's not nice going into streams and having them crash. That's kind of rude. Not nice. Definitely not nice. All right, closures. Keep allocated closures. Stack lifetime. WebSys closures. Let's look. Wow, the color on this. Maybe somebody on the duck stream. Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's funny. Sometimes the discipline of stack lifetime closures is not desired. You know the closure type. Okay. Actually, I just want to know a little bit more about closures in general. Can I return types? Closures also support arguments and return values like exports do. For example, okay, now I was doing this, but how do you express that? Because I tried that. Okay, that's not it. Oh, do I have to specify here? Well, T is sized there. Well, it's maybe sized. Um, do we have to tell it what the type is then? So like FN. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Can my keyboard keep up with that JS value to add promise? Okay, it needs to be static. Dine that, sure. Although, why do you have to specify that in the type plus static? It doesn't return. But see, promises can have return values, and I need it to have a return value. And in this case, it says, like stack closures, a closure can, oh, no, where to go? Yeah, closures also support arguments and return values. But how do you do that? How do you support the return value in this? Like, there's a little bit of magic sauce that I'm missing here. Where is it? Passing Rust closures to JavaScript. Promises and futures. All right, now I don't want to look in there. Let's keep going. So this passing Rust closures to JavaScript. Okay, do they have anything at the bottom here? A better example. See, that doesn't have a return type. Here it does. But that's just an example. Do we have to give it a reference to that? Takes immutable closure. Takes immutable closure. So those are externals. Those are externs. And right now we're trying to wire that up against this promise over here somewhere. Maybe I want to convert it back to a future in order to get the return value? Maybe. But how do we express that this code here? Here. Okay. Let's rewind all the way. Right. We're trying to chain these futures. These, excuse me, promises, because they're JavaScript promises. Now, part of the promise API that we should be using is this the then call. And it looks like the type here is actually already specified. And we cannot have return value. That's unfortunate. Yeah, and we could use that promise. I was hoping to be able to use the other. Because we basically have to wait until this promise finishes. Because self-to-render content is going to return a promise. And I would prefer to return that promise so that the chain is actually attached to that promise. I know it's hard to see with that error there, but because in JavaScript, you would have some sort of promise, let promise, or chain equals promise dot resolve, right? It doesn't have to be anything there. And then you say chain dot then, and give it some sort of, function. Um, writer.write, hello world. And this returned a promise. Okay. And then we did it out. Then on this, am I thinking about the promises correctly? Maybe, maybe not. Yes, chain.then returns a promise. And I understand that. Um, but that might not be the promise that we want to chain this off of. Oh, wait, it returns a promise in that. Because in this example, we have the status, JSON data, etc. Data here. Did I get this wrong? Note that the status function is actually called here and that it returns a promise. Yes. Callback is a callback to call once a promise is resolved. Likewise, the only difference here is that the JSON function here returns a promise that resolves with data. And then we have data, and here's another function. Okay, so we return a promise. Oh my goodness. I should know this. Well, that's a good refresher then. Okay. So we return a promise from this. But this render content, what do we do with this? How do we await this? Because we have a promise here that's getting created. Right, this right here returns a promise. So render content. And arguably this should probably be pushed down into like render content, but we have this promise that needs to be attached to the rest of it. And if we can't return that type, what do we return? I mean, why can't I just chain JavaScript promises? Because it has to return a promise that then gets awaited. All right. So we have wrap, box no. We cannot return a promise here. In this case, then returns a promise, which is fine, but we're not supposed to return anything there. So let promise equals that, and it just doesn't do anything. That seems odd. Oh, yeah, that should be outside. Extract it into a variable, take that, move it outside. Fine. Cannot move out of render content. It captures variable inside. Oh, because this is borrowing. Uh, just for now, make that static. Is it still borrowing? Oh, it has a promise trait, which isn't copy. Now, render content. Could make this owned. So, okay, you're taking that. Not a string, a string. Thank you. Yep, same thing there. Um, Captured variable. Why doesn't that move? That should move. Consider borrowing here. Huh. It looks like I should be able to move into this. Or does render content? Because the encode is taking a reference? Where's the local? Captured variable. The move occurs because render content is I promise, which is not implement the copy trait. That's fine. We just want it to move. Consider borrowing here. Render content. I think that's the wrong answer. Why does that work? We're moving the reference in? Wait, what? Okay. Why is that working? Like, seriously. Because here we have captured a reference to a local. But arguably this closure doesn't do anything. So what's the point of it? Does then do? Then it's supposed to chain these things. So after the first promise is complete, it goes on to processing the next promise. Or the next that's not true. So when you have a promise, you're awaiting something. You're awaiting an event to happen. And when that event happens, you can say, I want you to do this after that, right? In the context of, okay, so this is the then function on a promise in JavaScript. So we're basically giving it the oops, JavaScript version of chain.then, and then we give it some sort of function, and we're ignoring the variable, the value that's being passed in. And here, we're supposed to do something in JavaScript. In JavaScript, if we returned a promise here, then the next element in the chain would await that promise, right? So if we return some sort of fetch, right? If we did a fetch to google.com. Then, so if we returned that, then in the promise, the next thing that got chained, the next piece, you would get the page contents, right? And you could do something with that here. Now, if we're trying to do the same thing here, and we're just trying to do a chain.then, because we already have, why not simply create two futures and await them using join? Interesting idea. So using well, I was trying to use the JavaScript machinery for that. Because basically I'm just wiring together a bunch of little pieces of JavaScript, right? So in this case, we have this JavaScript write that's happening, and this write returns a promise for when it does resolve. And that promise, when it resolves, I want to trigger the next write. It's basically all we want to do is chain writes together. So you're thinking that we basically do this in the Rust side of it. Just trying to understand why we should mix promises and futures inside Rust. See, I'm actually trying to avoid the futures in this case. This promise chain, I would like to just be like pure JavaScript, like, hey, here's a promise, you know, and do a closure and await that. But our closures can't return promises, which is just bizarre. That's a WASM closure. It has a describe function. Oh, interesting. Simple WASM closure for. Wait, can we? But the then function returns a promise. Yes. Oh, I see. Because in JavaScript it doesn't, does it? Well, no, it does. Then returns a promise in JavaScript as well. Which is why you can chain promises, because it's promised at the end of it then, yeah. Mm. We could create a little utility out in JavaScript to wire this for us. That's an option. Right? Because if we were trying to just set this up, we've got our chain. I'm trying to do a then, and this here is what we're trying to do. Basically just this. Right? We've got our promise here that's ready to return. I've already got this. right? That's our right, which is coming from here. This is a promise. So we've already got our promise ready. We just need to return the promise from this closure. And the rest types are in the way. Well, not the rest types, but the this little machinery here. Rudy, thank you for the follow. Thank you. Render page start. It's because we can't have that there. There must be some other way to do that. So we have a JSS function. New with args, so we could create a new function. Creates a new function object, calling the constructor directly. Oh, hold on a sec. Proxy? Proxy? Oh, reflect. Well, reflect. Apply. There we go. We're going to use apply. Get a function reference. This argument list, etc. What else do we have in here? Has, get delete property, construct with new. Target? What is that? Okay. So we have a promise, right? And so this function here, we need to get a specific function. And how do we get that function? Can we get the JavaScript apply function, like the real JavaScript one? I made promise because I want one of these, but not this version of it. Let's toss this in Cloudflare. CF mod. Oops. Pub type promise. And then we'll have WASM bindgen. Again, this is going to be a method. And it's a pub function then. This is promise. Your own promise. And what can we pass into that? We can pass into it a JS value. Or a reference to a JS value. Reference. And that returns a promise. Oh, no ampersand on that. Okay, so we're sidestepping the JSS and WASM bindgen bits here. We'll use a CF promise. Actually, we could entirely do that. And why not? Actually, let's sidestep it completely. And instead of using a promise like this, we'll use a CF promise and have some sort of JS value passed in. So let's create resolve. Here's resolve. Oh, in this case, it's actually not a method. It's kind of a constructor, but so we call resolve on that. No function or associated item named that for that. So this function needs a JS namespace. Does that work? Okay, so then we get our promise, and now we have our chain. Yes, we want this to take a CF promise. Okay. Now how do we do the then? In this case, we're awaiting. Um, we need a. We need a. We need a function that can await something. And how would we do that? Because I don't really want. Okay, let's. We do a function, JS's function. Bind, name new. Because this is really a function reference, isn't it? Args, body. The function constructor takes a new function object. Calling the constructor directly can create functions dynamically. Oh, but suffers from security or similar. Okay. However, unlike eval, the function constructor allows executing code in the global scope, prompting better programming habits and allowing more efficient code minification. Oh, wow. Okay. This is going to be weird. Writing JavaScript in this. CF. No, it's not CF. It's JS sys function. Is it new with args? And what is the argument list here? On the side, it says something to use something like this. WASM bind in futures. JS future from promise await. Yes, if we were actually awaiting the result ourselves, we would use that. What we're trying to do is just create a promise chain that think about that, Jess. Don't I think that using promises instead of futures in Rust is confusing and misleading? Um, I quiet down. Yes, there's little Halsey. um, so in this case, I I don't. I mean, we're sitting there inside of V8, right? All of these types are available to us, so they're free to use. Um, I'm trying to avoid some of the glue at this point. Yeah, yeah, he's having too much fun. Um, so to me, everything's available, right? And I would be using the JS Future from PromiseBit if I was going to be trying to get the result, but I don't actually need the result. So having a JavaScript chain that doesn't have to invoke Rust to complete, I think is a big win because I know that going back and forth the between JavaScript and WASM, that little bridge there can take time, but also uh, when you start to look at the closure bits, you have to start worrying about memory and leaking and stuff like that. It's like, well, if we don't have to worry about any of that just by wiring up the JS bits directly, it's a win. So, because ideally we create a JavaScript chain that doesn't have to enter WASM, right? WASM might help glue it all together, but that's it. Yeah, a little co-pilot there. So the then method, so then's going to take a function, right? Takes as an argument. Well, in JavaScript, it can take a function, right? It takes the result of the first promise, or we just ignore that because we don't actually need it. Yeah. Yeah, and he can read that too. So, huh. Do you have candy?
A flintstone in my mouth.
What?
A flintstone in my mouth.
Oh, I see. He's got a vitamin, a little Flintstone vitamin thing. Um, yes. So if we did say with args, how do we actually use this? Let's look at the MDN. Now, I don't know if Cloudflare is actually going to allow this because they don't allow eval. Eval isn't allowed. So this might not actually work in Cloudflare. JS value is the result of the promise. Here in this case, JS value is the result of the previous promise. Yes, yes. But in this closure, we cannot return a promise, which we need to do. We need to return a promise to make the chain work correctly. And because this isn't returning a promise, the chain is broken. Because I want to string like 10 of these together. Yes. Hold on a sec. All right. Who defines the closure type? That's actually from JSSys. So here, actually, let's close that. That's too bright. I keep going to it. Oh, sorry. No, it's WASM bind gen. But and an optional return value. See, this is what I don't get, is that here with a closure, we can have an optional return value. But in promise, they actually constrain it, saying that then has a closure with this type. So they're constraining the closure to be an FN mute with no return type, which sucks because you want a return type on this if you're trying to create a chain. So we're going to try to sidestep that. Because they're going to want to call a function. We can export functions. It means we'll mutate the JS value. Sure. But how would that benefit us? It also means it's kind of like a, you know, let's go back to then. Even then too, has no return value. But that means that the chain still dies in this. You can't return a promise. The whole point is to return a promise. Am I wrong on that? I thought in order to get the chain working, we had to return a promise from the function that was handling the then. Because even though this returns like a promise here, you could then do a catch or something else on it, a finally. JS value is pacifier value. Okay. But I don't think that actually helps us here. So we'll get the JS value. I mean, am I missing something? What am I missing? I feel like it's so we can in CF here, we can say there's this promise type out there and we want to use it. So we can use bindgen to use I guess more raw types here. So in this case we can create a binding for resolve on promise. Right? So this is a completely different promise type than the JS promise. Yeah, they're having issues with that Little Big Planet 3. He wanted to check to see if the community section of Little Big Planet 3 was back online. I'm concerned that it might have been taken offline forever, but I haven't done a search yet. All right. So if we are going to use this promise type, right, where we have JS values, etc., we could expose some sort of some other type. Oh, you saw a headline about that the other day. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's they really liked the community section because people would set things up like superheroes and things like that, and they could I don't know. Little Big Planet 3 is like playing dolls, right? It's just like all action figures and dolls and stuff. So they had a lot of fun with it. What's that? He's got this little plastic dart gun, and this thing, if I put batteries in it, um, then it's got this little light on the front, and the cat will chase the light. He wants to use this instead of the laser pointer. But why don't you find the temperature reading gun? It's got a little laser pointer on it. Yeah, the one that Spuckles likes to chase. Yeah, the temperature one. Yeah.
What does it look like?
It's orange or red, and it's got a little trigger. It looks like a little gun like that, but it takes temperature. It's red, and I think it's got a black on the end. Where did I last put it? Um, probably over near the toolboxes in the shop somewhere. All right. So if we tried to use this, we should be able to do it. If we could say wire up some sort of function here. So can we pass a function into this? I think we could. Oh, where is it? Passing Rust closures to JavaScript. Rust WASM bindgen supports Rust closures being passed into JavaScript in two variants: stack lifetime closures and heap allocated ones. Usage. Okay, so this would be like what we're doing here. Takes immutable closure, takes immutable closure. Okay. In our case, it's going to be immutable. So we're just returning a promise. We pass a reference to something like that, which makes sense. And in this case, yes, makes sense. But it does mean that, um, okay, let's just do that then. Dyn function. It's going to take a value, probably a JS value. And this is going to return a JS value, which a promise happens to be. All right. So we come back over here, chain. And here we're just going to return the render content. That promise. We want to reference to that promise. Okay. Expected struct JS value, found promise. We have to deref that. Or, because we know it's a promise, we can do unchecked into JS value. Oops. Value. Convert it there. Expected struct JS is promise. Oh, this should be a CF promise. Yes. We want JS cast. Come on. Gotta use that. Okay, and page start. Oh, page end. Yes, we have to change the types on this one too. These should be CF promises. Although, right. What are we making? Today we're working through creating a promise chain inside of JavaScript and WASM and Cloudflare. And the bigger picture is that we're working on something called Mimeograph, which is like a serverless WordPress. And we're working on building up the template engine at the moment. So I'm going to be using mod, promises, transforms, etc. And in this case, we can do the unchecked transform because even though the type says it's one kind, like this says it's a JSys promise, this JSys promise is, oh, what is that JSys promise? CF stream. Like in this case, if I change it to CF promise, which one should I be using? I mean, and you'll be able to read their temperature. Yeah, that's all right. We got some sort of trait bound here. Yeah, because our right changed. And in this case, are we even awaiting this? This is a JS promise. That's interesting because sometimes we actually want the other function on a promise. Oh, interesting. It's different. Okay. Um, because in this case, when we use the writer.write, we're getting a future. In this case, it's returning as a CF future. But if we wanted to convert that into a JF future, we'd have to say, oh, well, you know what? This is an unchecked into, and this would be JS sys promise. We could try to implement something like an into JS sys or something like that to JS sys or something like that. Can we do that? We go back into, let's say, CF promise. So here's our promise. Can we impl? We need a trait into JS sys. Oh, something like that. Oops, come on, into, thank you. And what do we want this to have? A function into. We would have to know what kind we wanted. And we'd have to pass a T, and the T would have to be a JS cast. Take a self and return that T. Something like that. Then if we implemented that for promise, impl into JSys or promise.
How did you make the arrow?
How did I make the arrow? He's looking at the code and he's asking, how did I make the arrow? The arrow is actually made up of two pieces, a hyphen and a greater than sign, or a right angle bracket. And if I remove this space, it becomes an arrow. Yeah, that's kind of cool, huh? All right. So, self. Oh, no, not where T is JS cast. Where self is JS cast. Let's move this into a where clause. Thank you. And whereas self. Huh. Oh, please don't do that. It's where we can cast into that T and JS cast into what is it? Unchecked into? Oh, I see. Because here we're taking it from a JS value where, oh, interesting. So self has to be like asref JS value?
Dad, how do you move your
Oh, yeah, it's right there. All right, can anybody answer the question? How do you move your eyebrows? It's a very urgent question. Yeah, see, you just do one of these things. I can only move this one independent of that one. Kind of get that one going there. I can't do it the other way.
I was touching the letters.
You were touching the letter. Oh, on the wall there? Yeah. Okay. What do they feel like?
Letters.
Okay, so I'm actually going to take that. Can we put a constraint there? Oh, we can on a trait. Interesting. And then we have T here, where T is JS cast. There. That's a tough one. Uh, it is a tough one. All right, so into JS says, actually, I want. See, I know that. mm, Actually, this promise here should be a JS value already, right? So we should be able to convert that directly. I'm just trying to come up with a little. All I'm doing is implementing unchecked into, which is. Oh, that's right. Um, Can only be used if the trait's in scope, yes. And the trait was the JS cast. Oh, we're here. Was it JS's or oh WASM bind gen? Okay. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's touching the words behind me. Do I even listen to a playlist? I don't listen to a playlist. Currently I'm listening to a channel here. So we're on the trance station. Kind of mix it up every now and then. We tried like yacht rock, world, upbeat dance, just kind of going backwards through this. We had been in, oh goodness, funk for a long time, and just gonna skip around. All right, error. Oh, the trait bound JS feature from that. Oh, because we need. Wait, why? Oh, because we're awaiting this. Yes, we actually need to be able to await this last little piece here. So the last end of the chain, we have to await.
Letters.
Unchecked into. Not distracting at all. Not distracting. Jazz promise. Oh, it's a JS sys promise. Okay. Can't move out of render content.
I'm touching promise.
Move. I want that to move. I mean, that. So, what do we do here? So we want to move that into this. And rendered content should be able to move. Captured outer variable. Somebody's going to the other side again. Yes, we know that's not being used. Well, let's extract that into a variable. Oh, not there. That's an old phone. Yeah. Sister likes to play with that.
You want the thing that can turn on and end off that?
No, not right now, thank you. Yeah, we're not gonna play around with the lighting right now. Hey, no. No, thank you. All right. Record check. What's going on here? Captured out of variable. Why can't that move into it? What am I missing here? Does it move via copy? Have I never really realized? Have I not? Is that how moving works? Just copy it? That doesn't seem. I guess it'd be like pointers and stuff you could move via copy. What else? Hmm. Okay. Well, we can move this whole section into there. Ah, but then we need to have the chain. Oh, the chain's on the outside. Okay.
Did I touch above your head?
I wasn't watching. Okay, like so. Yeah, okay. I'll watch it. You got really close. You were like up here. You got to that area. Yeah. Okay. So this might work. So we call render content. Render content creates a promise. Oh, thank you. No, you may not sit on my lap right now. No. I'm sorry. Sorry, big guy. It would be hard to program with you on my lap, dude. I'm sitting on a stool, and that would also be kind of uncomfortable on my legs. Um, Thank you for the follow. Okay. Um, so in theory, this sort of thing would work. That's actually not that bad. We return a promise. It's kind of clean. You just have a little chain dot then through promise in it. Technically, there's nothing to move. Oh, but we do need the reference. Not referencing anything inside of oh, except for the self.render. How did how is it not throwing a fit about that? Wow. Wow. It's because this then on chain doesn't understand, doesn't have the lifetimes, which I think should be like a red flag, right? Like it shouldn't be able to do this. Because what if self goes away? I mean, we're keeping a reference to self, so maybe render content should just be. Oh, that is surprising. I mean, the whole reason we had that outside of it was because of the closure before. I mean, I'd hate to take advantage of this being inside of JavaScript or something, but what if self actually goes away in the WASM or gets moved? How does it know what it is? Is it going to give us good results? I mean, that looks like an unsafe sort of nightmare. Oh, can we clone JS values? We can clone JS values, right? So if we did put this on the outside, so if we left it like this, it's going to give us the error, yes. And if we clone it, it's fine. Okay, this is a better solution. And let's take this. We're going to say render content actually returns a JS value. Oh, is that WASM bygen? I'm going to go ahead and toss this in here. Okay, then we've got our promise that we return as a JS value. Oh, and a semicolon. Okay. So we have content, we render the content, and we chain the promise. Can we... Uh, oh, that should be promise, shouldn't it? Or content? I think I like promise better. A little more clear. Given that we're cloning it, this could be a stir now, couldn't it? All right. So I'm going to take this back from a string. Say our content is that. We're going to pass that in. Actually, why don't we just inline that, render content, chain it. Same thing here. Okay, so we've got render page start, render page contents, and we keep chaining. So page start here is part of the chain, and we await the result. Okay. It compiled. Haha. Success. Reload it. Uh-oh. Finalization registry is not defined. What? What is that? What in the world is that? Finalization registry is not defined. Say it must include finalization registry. All right. What is finalization registry? We're learning new things today. Lets you request a callback when an object is garbage collected. Huh. Cleanup callbacks should not be used for essential program logic. I wonder where that's happening. Is that because because of this? Let's give that a thumbs up. I'm guessing it's because of that. Something existed that probably the weak reference stuff we were trying to get a hold of. So it generated WASM code that Cloudflare doesn't support. Hey, okay. Got rid of that other error. All right. So now we're back to the script will never generate a response. Dun dun dun. Because our promises. All right. So let's go back. We just got to get this correct. Once we get this piece going, then I think the rest is gonna kind of snowball. So where is our promise chain failing us? So we're supposed to be calling render. Where's that happening? Here. So here's our 6A's. Okay. So we're hitting that point, right? And then we get this promise. Our content never happens, right? It should, because we're passing in the writer and the text transformer, right? Create a promise. And we end up awaiting. Hmm. I'm actually awaiting the last thing in the promise chain. And that might not be correct. I think I want kind of like a finally or something like that on it. Okay, so this is fixed promise. It's neat that Cloudflare actually tracks the promises and the promise chains, all of that stuff to be able to know whether or not a request is going to resolve. That is so cool. Um, promise. About then. So we need another then. Or a finally. All. Any. Oh, there it is. I was missing the methods. When the promise is settled, either the fulfilled or rejected. Okay, either fulfill or rejected. And can we put that on the first thing? Say, okay, we have this. We've got the chain. And that chain, we're going to do a then on that, right? Can we do a finally? We have to implement that. CF mod. No, finally. That returns a function. Actually, I think I want more of like a promises all. Or can actually. I think I'm awaiting the wrong future here. I think I actually have to await this one up at the top, the chain. So we take that, say, hey, yes, we're going to do that. That's a semicolon there. JS feature from chain. And when chain finishes being processed, then, oh, we need the unchecked into on this. Oops. Hey, thank you for the follow, Jimani. The value moved. Take a reference to it then. Thank you for the follow. Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is that an LB1WH? Thank you. Watching silently for the last quarter hour. Welcome. So let's change this. It doesn't matter if these are passed by reference. At least I don't think it matters. It'll tell us. Okay, then we can wait on the chain at the end. Here we go. Still, nothing. Okay. Oh, Brady, happy to see some Rust times out. Rust and WASM. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, we kind of go all over the place here, but Rust is a very common theme on this stream. Very common. I think we're 1,800 hours common. Render page. Okay, so are we not like awaiting this? Because here we should await this promise. I mean, this is getting called here. We have a readable stream. Got a writable stream. We get the writer. We pass that into this. We await the render. All right. So if we're awaiting this, how far does this actually make it? It looks like it should make it all the way to the end here. It's just that for whatever reason, the chain is not set up right. All right, spot the error. Where's the error? It could be that we're passing the wrong types. Okay, what happened there? Oh, log one. Let's qualify these. Oh, that failed. Okay. This one too. So I expect both of these to actually be shown and that our error to be something else. I'm just doing a little sanity check, making sure it's plugged in. So I don't want to make some assumptions here and then have that, yeah, kind of go off on like a wild goose chase when your assumptions were wrong. Okay, so in here, we should be getting these promise chains called, right? So render page start. Let's see, does this promise actually get called? Or this closure in the chain? Maybe we're passing the wrong type and it's just not whining about it. We're not getting the X. Okay. Looks like it should be there. Yeah, no X. Oh, start. We called it start. Yeah, start's not there. So why isn't this getting called? So we call then on chain. Past that, we give a promise back. And this is the correct type of promise, I believe. It's here. The type of this should be correct because encoder and write. The problem is, see, do we even ever get to that point? Let's check that. Right. This should happen a number of times. Content. Because we're not doing that inside of the chained functions, the chained closures there. Oops. Let's see. Yeah, see, we had both of those render before we got to W even, which is fine. And that makes sense because we do page start and page end, so we create those promises. Okay, so they must not be wired up correctly. The one dark theme is killer, yeah? Just switched and finally got a feeling of content. Do you have a link to that? I wouldn't mind seeing it. It's temporary. Oh, oh, Moscowish. That's funny. All right. So if this the then is incorrect, CF mod, that's this then here. So value here, I wanted to be able to return some sort of closure to that. And if we look here, right, where's our, I don't want closures here. Passing Rust closure to JavaScript. Okay. Must be explicitly deallocated. Okay. Heap allocated closures. And this is the one that requires nightly. Yeah, I don't think we can do that right now. Oh, it's mine. Oh, that's Endercrons. Yeah. Yeah. Today I learned Mimeograph. Thanks for your personal culture. Debated. They were your dump files all along. That's funny. Oh. All right. So we're trying to pass a closure, right? Stack lifetime closures. Hmm. We could heap. We could deallocate these. You need the closure type. Yeah, we don't want to use that. Actually, we could use the closure type here, couldn't we? Closure type is currently behind a feature which needs to be enabled. Actually, that doesn't seem to be the case for me. Did, did we turn that on already? No, we didn't. Okay. Because we could use a closure. We could pass a closure here, right? And this closure could return more information, could have more in it. Oh, let's clean the rest of that up. Missing generics for struct closure. Dyn fn takes some sort of JS value, returns a JS value. Oh, we can't have generics in this, can we? Or hold on. The trait bound closure done, yada yada, was not satisfied. The following implementations were found. Does this need to be static? It needs to be static. Okay. I, I don't know if Kappa 10 does that work with Kappa 10? Yeah, we didn't I don't did I have that hard coded? What did we do for Kappa 10? We should update Kappa 10. Okay. Currently not sound to use lifetimes in function signatures. Ah, okay. Then we could say this is a closure to a box dyn function. Express that it's owned in a different way. What? Is JS what? Why? The trait into WASM ABI is not implemented for closure box dyn function. Okay. The following implementations were found. Oh, it needs to be a reference? Can closure be taken to a JS value? Because maybe we just do this elsewhere. Yeah, into WASM ABI. Okay. So that can go into as rough JS value. But when we use this, then we have to forget it eventually. And how do we do that? How do we wire up when to forget this thing? So let's say, yes, this is a JS value or a reference to one. Okay. And then we came back to page template. and change this to be a closure, right? Closure wrap, box new. And what did it want? It wanted, okay, we need to downcast that into a different type. So as ref that. Fine. Let's save this to a local. Closure. And if this gets a little bit more out of hand, we're going to create a wrapper for this. I'm checked into JS value. Thank you. No, it should be able to do that, right? Can I find wrap in the scope? Oh, we renamed it closure. Huh. The trait bound WASM closure is not satisfied. Does it need to be borrowed? All right, let's look at the docs again. New box, yada yada. Seems pretty simple. As box sign, feature, yada yada. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. Box T, where T is WASM closure. Should work. Let's see. What makes something a WASM closure? And the closure's return type. And talk about, you know, the curiosity about the type future, which it seems to be anonymous. Thank you.
Do you want cake or not?
Yes, please. All right. Because I just refunded some points. Let's see. Yeah, future's interesting, but it's a trait. It's not a type, right? Syntax more than anything. Well, I'm getting the type incorrect here, and yeah, let's go look at the documentation. Closure is implemented for all sorts of things. Right? Once, oh, interesting. This is a WASM closure FN once. What about this one? Same to that. Wrap's a little different. Interesting. Now what's this? Once into JS converts fn1s into a JavaScript function. If the JavaScript function is invoked more than once, it'll throw an exception. Unlike closure ones, this does not return a closure that can be dropped before the function is invoked to deallocate the closure. And the only way the fn1s is deallocated is by calling the JavaScript function. If the JavaScript function is never called, then the fn1s and everything it closes over will leak. It feels dirty. Um, oh, when you return a feature, when you return a dynimple, yeah. Um, yeah, so let's say this was, you return something that's an impl feature with output string, right? Yeah, that's an unnamed type. Yeah. If you needed to implement that, you could actually impl feature for some other type. So if you had to, you could have like a struct Bob, and then have impl feature for Bob, and actually, so I got to go in a couple minutes here. Why doesn't it like that? There we go. It won't let me just create a struct for Bob. Oh, it's a stucked R. I missed the R. So yeah, if you did need a named type for this, you can actually implement this. Implement everything. That's not. Okay. And in our case, the type that we were looking at down below would have been a string. And yeah, you could implement the polling yourself. So basically, I think that those, yeah, I got to get running. I'm going to take a break. Um, that's a little abrupt. I didn't realize coffee was brewing. Um, we're gonna find a raid target. How high can you reach up here? What? No, over there. Yeah. Oh, you're getting taller. You've been watching a few streams with Rust. It seems like every little thing is overly complex. Oh, yeah, let's not. Yeah, you're using your longest finger to touch things. You watch someone spend just trying to convert an hour trying to convert something into a string. Wow. Um, and that can happen, right? That can happen. But usually it's because um, the compiler's right. One of the things that I really appreciate about Rust is being able to spend that time up front and not have to come back later and find the bugs. I really appreciate that. Yeah, right now it's because we're inside of a JavaScript virtual machine because we've compiled our Rust to WASM and we have those types available to us. And we're trying to use those in kind of an efficient way. And I mean, if I was trying to do this just Rust, sure, I could do that. But then it would spend a lot more time inside of WASM when we don't need to. So it's kind of little trade-offs back and forth. I'm trying to use JavaScript for what JavaScript's good at, even though we're writing Rust code. So let's see what's graphene, 2D graphene in Rust. Let's see what they're doing. Oh, I can't hear it. The Qt, OpenGL, and C++ experts? Rust Lab? Interesting. Who is this? Who's speaking? They're doing English at the moment. I don't know. Should we raid them? Looks like no. Are they going to do coding? All right, I'll do it. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out and keeping me sane during the Rust and JavaScript type wars. Um, it's good having you along. I really appreciate it. My studio helper here is adjusting the mic. So until next time, y'all. Bye bye. Saying hi to you. Say hi.
Hi.